Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Thanks so much again for joining us from wherever you are in the world for our fifth, count them five, webinars in our Clarity in a Time of Crisis series. So my name is Chris Adams. I look after research and insights at Miles Partnership. And let me very briefly introduce our two wonderful speakers today. So I'll come back to them more formally in a moment. Amir Elon of Longwoods International, and from all the way from Helsinki, Finland, Laura Aalto, and I'll introduce them both in a moment. So Clarity in a Time of Crisis is our effort to curate and summarize key insights from partners and destinations across the US and around the world. And this week we're going to check back in with Amir and Longwoods on their weekly tracking study of US traveller sentiment, which we've been sponsoring over the last couple of months. And then we're going to head across the pond, as the Brits say, and check in with Laura and Helsinki for lessons from Finland and Scandinavia. So thanks again for joining us, the many old friends, familiar colleagues from all across the US and around the world. Thanks for joining the Miles family on this webinar today. Please check out our COVID-19 education portal. We're updating it all the time. And in fact, I'll be flagging a couple of resources that we're just adding shortly as we go through the webinar today. As you know, and there's a lot of familiar faces have joined us in past weeks, we seek to answer these three essential questions, providing insights on the current situation. What are the opportunities for action? And then what's the timing? What should we be doing now and what we should be doing next in terms of priorities? So let me now more formally introduce our two wonderful speakers today. An old friend and industry colleague, Amir Elon, is president and CEO of Longwoods International, and he heads one of the US's leading tourism research companies and our partner in the COVID-19 US traveller sentiment. He'll take us back over the answers we've already got and some of the outstanding questions from the first 8 weeks of data. And Laura Aalto is CEO of Helsinki City Marketing, and she combines Scandinavian flair with Finnish pragmatism. And she's going to share the critical areas of focus that they've worked on in the Finnish capital on immediately dealing with the crisis and some of their wonderful work in terms of technology, digital technology and sustainability, where they've been a real standout leader amongst destinations. So we'll kick it off with Amir's look back at the last 8 weeks of data. And in fact, we've got hot off the press research from last week. And I'll briefly summarize 6 practical things that you can be doing now based on the research. Then we're going to fly over to Finland in a virtual sense at least, and Laura's going to share those insights on what they're doing now and what they're going to be doing next in Finland. And she's going to take a brief look around Scandinavia as well for us. Thanks again to our partners and associates of the webinar today, Destinations International, US Travel, DMA West and STS, Southeast Tourism Society, and of course Destinations International, US Travel run their own superb webinars and have provided a lot of resources as well. So without further ado, let me pass over to Amir. And Amir, do you want to take us back over the last couple of months of what US travelers are thinking and what are they doing in terms of their travel intentions?
Sure thing, Chris. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, as you said, wherever you are today. It's a pleasure being back, and it's been a very interesting couple of months for us all. It's an understatement, but as far as the data goes, we definitely have learned a number of things. Quick refresher, our travel sentiment study that we conduct every week, taking a pulse check of American travelers. It comes out of our Travel USA panel. Travel USA, the largest and longest ongoing study of traveling American households. Rather than looking back at the recent travels, we're talking to them about their sentiments about travel moving forward here. So we started this at the beginning of the crisis, hitting our US shores back in early March, and right before things started shutting down, and we've been trying to bring this as a tool to everyone. And really want to thank Miles for this partnership, to their support in this program, because we're able to provide this at no charge to the entire industry. So thank you, Chris and team at Miles. So this past week, as usual, we talked to 1,000 adults 18 years and older, and here are some of our key learnings here. We'll get the clicker here moving. Oh, there it is. Let's go back one. There we are. Okay, sorry about that. Well, this past week we found out that 79% of travelers planning to travel in the next 6 months have either changed or in the process of changing their, or will be changing their travel plans. Almost half of them canceled their trip completely. Almost half of them had reduced their travel plans in some form or fashion, going from long vacations to a series of getaways, or even more significantly, I think a lot of people on this call, about 1 in 4 changing from a long-haul fly destination to a drive destination in there. And of course, the cancellations and changing of international travel plans to domestic travel plans. At this point, when we look over the trend line here, pretty confident to say that anybody who had travel plans in the next 6 months was impacted by them has already kind of made that decision one way or the other. Not a lot of undecided left in initial travel plans there. You can see that we've held pretty steady the last couple of weeks here. There's always a plus or minus 2% kind of margin of error there. So it's pretty flat over the last couple of weeks. And you can see we still have a long way to get back down to that 58% the first week we got there. Now, as we look at the trend lines and the other factors here of how they're changing their travel plans, again, you see stabilization in those who are canceling their travel, those who reduced their travel. I think the most significant thing to look at here is on the changing to road trip, drive market travel. As you can see, that's been inching its way up here over the last few weeks. There, and you can see the beginning of the survey, that was, we saw that was the initial plan was, okay, fine, I'm going to just take a road trip instead of flying somewhere and do sort. And you saw a lot of trips being changed to drive markets, and then of course you saw everything going to lockdown, a lot of trips being canceled, and now that we're entering reopening or partial reopening, people looking forward again, and you're starting to see that drive market interest again. Every week we are asking folks about the key, what factors will greatly impact their decision to travel in the next 6 months. The 3 factors we've been measuring each and every week have been transportation costs, concerns about the economy, and of course the fear of the coronavirus. They pretty much stayed in this order in terms of throughout the whole survey. Transportation costs being not much of an issue at all, concerns with the economy being steady, we'll talk about that in a moment, and of course the 500-pound gorilla in the room has been the fear of coronavirus. There, as you can see, 55% of travelers telling us that they will be greatly impacting their decision to travel. Add that with those who scored a 4 out of 5, and you're looking at about 78% of influence there. The interesting thing here, and here's a bright spot for everybody, focus in on this. As you can see, we kind of peaked about April 1st. We peaked at 67% of folks saying it would greatly impact their decision to travel in the next 6 months. And lo and behold, we're back down to 55%. So in the past month, we've seen that sentiment steadily inching downwards in the right direction. Now, still have a long way to go. You can see on March 11th, it was 35% only, but we like the direction it's heading in, and fingers crossed, we see it going that way. All right, talked about the economy. This is the one that's probably surprised most people the most when they look at these factors. As obviously we know that the economy is sunk into a deep recession due to everything coming to a stop for so long. There were a lot of folks just thinking, and we were part of that group initially, that concerns about the economy, as fears of the coronavirus would ebb, the concern about the economy would go up, and really hasn't. It stayed the same. It tells us a couple things here that are most likely happening. Number one, still the fear of the coronavirus is so great, people are getting beyond that. And secondly, if there's that pent-up demand, people want to get away. So they're saying, I'm going to get away somehow when I can. They're not so concerned about what type of expense because they haven't gotten into that deep planning yet. Now, the $64,000 question we always look at, are you planning to travel in the next 6 months? Back in March 11th, you saw 87%, almost everyone was, yeah, we're going to be traveling. It's, yeah, the coronavirus thing's coming, but we're still going to be traveling. We'll be at it in no time. There, as you can see, we bottomed out on April 1st. And then the first 2 weeks in April, we were getting excited because we saw a directional move and back up the right way. And then it held steady. And so you can see for pretty much the past month, we've been floating right around 70% in terms of intent to travel in the next 6 months. So what's that telling us? Well, this is kind of unprecedented territory, uncharted waters. You've heard that a lot about the virus, unprecedented territory, right? Well, here's what's happened. There's this bubble of pent-up demand, right? This big ball of pent-up demand. In past crises, recessions, and so forth, it gets released when the time's right, when the economy starts looking like it's improving, or post 9/11, it was shortly thereafter, and releases and start going back up. Unfortunately, this big ball of pent-up demand is now running straight into a wall of fear, consumer fear of the coronavirus in there. If you just listen to the news every day, while you're hearing on the one hand talk about reopening economies and the gradual return to some type of new normalcy, at the same time you're hearing all the debate about reopening too soon and talk of fear of a second surge and what that means, and of course and all the debates around that. And that's quite frankly what we're seeing right here. Every week at the end of our survey, we save last question for kind of a wild card question, as we call it internally. We've asked different questions over the last 2 months over travelers' media consumption, when do travelers feel it's safe to travel, and so forth. This week, we felt it was time to ask that question of, when it's okay to travel, what is that first trip you're planning to take in the next 6 months? That very first trip you're planning to take. And as you can see, it's visiting friends and relatives. Well, again, we've been very disconnected as a society, right? We've maybe missed family gatherings and friends gatherings over Easter, spring break, Mother's Day coming up this weekend here in the US. So don't forget to call your mom. And people they just want to reconnect with their loved ones, the people most important to them, see their grandchildren, see whoever they can visit, college buddies, etc. And guess what? They're going to do it by car. As you can see, almost the same amount said we're going to do a short driving trip, and some said we're going to take a longer driving trip. But guess what? We're taking a road trip. You can see big drop off when we're talking about air travel in there. What's the second greatest group? Well, a leisure trip, just getting away. I got to get away for myself, my spouse, family, and so forth in there. And again, what are they going to do? They're going to take a road trip. I think one of the most encouraging things that you see here, one of the brightest spots, is you go down to where it shows 8% there, for about 4 from the bottom. Only 8% of American travelers are telling us that they're not planning to take a trip in the next 6 months. So that intent to travel is high, and they're getting ready to go as soon as they can go. And as long as that number stays in single digits, I'm going to be smiling. That's my story, Chris. I'm sticking to it. Over to you.
Yeah, I mean, actually, some of the stats out of China, this last weekend, I believe it was a long weekend in China, they were seeing record domestic visitor numbers, and they've in fact seen crowding at some of the key places, which of course is not ideal when they're trying to maintain social distancing. So pent-up demand is absolutely a real thing when it's appropriate to travel. We've summarized practical takeaways in our blog that will be posted this afternoon. It will be included in the email. And just to clarify to everybody, the slides, the recordings, and resources are all going to be sent out via an email 24 hours after this webinar. So, and you can also share that recording with other people. So this blog really summarized these 6 practical takeaways. The opportunity, obviously, to stay connected with future travelers, that pent-up demand is real, and to inspire them, but really focusing and prioritizing the essentials of connecting with locals and supporting local business. We all know how challenged businesses are. So if you're a destination, how do you support them? How do you activate your locals to support them? And then this whole critical issue of visiting friends and relatives. How do you use your locals to activate visiting friends and relatives to maximize their stay and spend, And just remember, VFR doesn't mean that they're going to stay at their friends and relatives. In fact, about 30 to 40% of VFR travellers have traditionally stayed in commercial accommodation. So with all the work that's being done around hygiene and cleaning, etc., that's an opportunity, obviously, to involve your commercial accommodation as well. People are very focused around official advice, particularly federal agencies such as the CDC, in terms of telling them when and how it's appropriate to travel. And then finally, storytelling, content, delivering that message needs to be across multiple media, including print showed up as a strong channel that people wanted to engage with. I think with all the screens we're interacting with, print, that sort of tactile experience seems very comforting and familiar at these times. So please check that out. We also do a 2-page summary every week, Amir and I. So we summarize the critical sort of takeaways and insights, and we provide 4 data points. So that's available every edition, and we also record an on-demand edition as well, a little 5-minute summary for the weeks that Amir hasn't joined us live and in person. So additional resources at those sites you can see on your screen. And without further ado, let's pass over to Laura. And Bill, thanks very much for your question. I'll come back to that at the end when Amir will join us with Laura, and we can dive into a number of questions. So Laura, why don't, as to sort of kick it off, you give the audience a sort of short summary of what's happening in Helsinki and Finland right now with regards to the pandemic and its impact on travel and tourism.
Well, thank you, and hello everyone from Helsinki, Finland. It's 10 o'clock in the evening here, or 10:15. So, and thanks for inviting me. It's great to be with you today. Well, considering the situation, I think we're doing fine. It's crisis all over the world, but we're doing quite okay. The crisis hit Finland a bit later than the rest of Europe, so we've been warned what's coming, so to say. And by the way, at the time we have only about 250 deaths in the whole country, so that's very little. And we've had the lockdown. We're having the lockdown since 78 weeks now. And just yesterday, the national government announced that they will start opening the society little by little. So schools start in 2 weeks. The restaurants will be opened the 1st of June. And I must say, I'm really proud of our national government. It's led by this young lady of 34 years old, and it's a coalition party of five parties, and all led by women, and they're doing fantastic work. So in these terrible times, I think I'm happy with the work they're doing. And when it comes to the other Nordic countries, Norway and Denmark have had a very similar kind of strategy than Finland, so they closed the societies down quite early. Sweden, however, they've taken a different path, a different strategy, and they've had a lot more open society throughout the weeks we've just had. So there's the total number of deaths is a lot higher there.
There's actually been a lot of discussion, hasn't there, about the comparable sort of tracks of Sweden and Finland and Denmark, and I've learned things about the sort of cultural differences I wasn't even familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
So, Laura, do you want to share, in terms of what its immediate impact on Helsinki city marketing is, your team, your resources, and how you're sort of deal, what you've got to deal with this crisis?
Well, like every other DMO, all plans we had for this year, we had to review them and kind of like reconsider and redesign what we are up to and doing this year. But when it comes to the budget or subsidizes. This is something that we haven't had any cuts so far. So we are a company owned by the city completely. We get about 80% of our budget is funded by the city, by the local city government. But of course, we work a lot with the local companies, and they are seeing some really difficult times, and it's kind of like how the city sees the situation at the moment is that when the companies are having bad times or difficult times, it's the public sector who needs to be investing even more to marketing and communications and branding, and this is what we're believing. And actually, as it says here now, in the future, we believe that the most pressing global challenges will be solved on the city level, and all DMOs need to be part also of the solution, not the problem. And this is how we approach. We're very kind of like connected to the city strategy. And then
I was just going to comment, Laura, Rahm Emanuel, the former mayor of Chicago, has just got a book out talking about how cities are going to, lead a lot of these, deal with a lot of these challenges in the world ahead.
Yeah. And I think we kind of look at, as it says here, we position ourselves as a test bed for world's megacities. So this is a quite small city. We have about 650,000 people living in Helsinki, and the whole country has about 5.5 million inhabitants. And because it's quite compact and it's very well educated people, there's a high quality of digital innovation here. So this is a good place to test out something and then scale it up in another city. And I believe that all destination marketing organizations should be in line with their city strategies, so they kind of like that they are actually making it alive in all of their activities as well.
So you've been doing some extraordinary work in terms of connecting with your locals and telling the story of the artists, the creative talent you've got in Helsinki, both locally but also around the world. Do you want to share some of the projects you've been working on in that space?
Oh, yes. Well, this virtual Helsinki May Day concert is my absolute favorite from the last weeks. It was a live concert that took place on virtual reality. On virtual Helsinki. It's a digital platform we've been building for about 2 years now, and it's based on the 3D modeling that the city has published as open data, and it's fully coded. So it's not based on 360 photos or Google Earth or something, but everything is fully coded. And the 1st of May is always a big celebration here, and actually basically the city government was worried that people would go out on the streets and party, because that's what you do on 1st of May. You go to picnics and in the parks and so on. So we decided to use that digital platform as a tool to communicate with the locals and provide them with experiences that are so unique that they would stay at home. That's actually what happened. And it was hugely popular. We had some 700,000 people attending it live, and then later on, a streamed version, I think it went up to 1.5 million people, which is huge in the country of 5.5 million people. So it was really massive. And we also used this activity as a way to communicate the digital innovation we have here globally. So we have we work with several PR agencies, and one of the agencies in London was working on this. So just today came out news on Guardian, on Forbes, about telling how the destination is marketing itself in these times. And this is the way of kind of like why I'm telling the example is because it's combining the local and global reach at the same time. And I actually have a small video of the concert, which I'd like to show you next.
Junalaiva flygari
So, Laura, my Finnish, I've got to brush up on my Finnish a bit, but what was that song about?
It's well, to be honest with, it's not my favorite band, but it's like hugely popular here. Some, nonsense. But I mean, it's really, everyone loves it here. So it's and actually the virtual reality concert was taking place on Senate Square, which is the most iconic square here. And that was the where people normally gather also on the May Day. So it was a really kind of like a nice ways to use it digitally and virtually that way as well.
Yeah. So those were quite incredible numbers you got in terms of engagement. What was the secret, do you think, to getting engaged with locals and getting them connected into this virtual concert? How did you actually get the message out?
Well, it was first and foremost, it was a collaboration. So it was all parties working closely together, and we as a DMO we were only playing a very small detail in this. So it was the whole city organization. It was starting from the mayor and everybody involved communicating, and do not go out. That is, we want you to stay home. I think the collaboration was the key word, and really the band was something that what's the most popular in the country at the moment, and also the fact that it was technically so advanced, so people hadn't seen things like that. You could also be part of it, so you could create your own avatar and be in touch with the band. So it was not like a streamed concert as you're used to see nowadays, but it's really, you could interact with the band and send emojis and you kind of like be in touch with the band. It's very similar. It used a similar technology as the Fortnite had last year with the DJ Mashable. So it's the same similar kind of concept, but nobody had done that in Finland before, and I think it's quite unique in the world as well.
Yeah, my 19-year-old daughter knew about the band, so there you go. So Helsinki's been known as a real global leader in terms of digital innovation with initiatives such as, your My Helsinki open data platform. Do you want to give us an update on how you're thinking about and leveraging your sort of leadership and innovation in digital, and what are you planning out of this crisis?
Well, there are two things that we focus on in our international marketing, communications, and brand building. The other one is digital innovation, and the other one is sustainability. And I think these two things become even more important in the future. So we're going to focus even more strongly in those in the future. And Helsinki is a world leader in open data. I think it's city, the second city has opened the second most open data sets in the world. And we believe that this open data creates also trust between the people with the local community. And when we started to build our new website 3 years ago, myhelsinki.fi, we realized that actually we have 3 quite valuable data sets, which you will see in the next slide, on location data, event data, and activity data. So we built the My Helsinki site on these data sets, and we created an open API, My Helsinki open API. So we basically can provide for free for anybody to use the data that we own. And now this kind of like, I think it flips around the very basic idea of destination marketing, that we don't buy advertising space, but we provide the information about the destination for anybody who wants to use it. And this was I think this was this is still something that I'm extremely proud of, and this is exactly what, for instance, got the interest from the Tencent, from the Chinese tech giant, world's 8th biggest company. So they wanted to use Helsinki as a kind of like innovation platform to create WeChat My Helsinki mini program, which is a all-in-one service for Chinese visitors to get the information about the destination, and then also for transportation and also to pay. So WeChat Pay is also included there. Everything in this one solution. So this kind of like, I think the technical innovation is it's not about technology, it's about people. So really understand, having the human-centric approach of how people behave and creating services around it. So I often say that we don't do marketing, we do good services, and we do so good content that people find that it's exciting and want to use it.
So the WeChat mini program, that was a real innovation. What's your thoughts about the Chinese market? Obviously, you're not sure when that's going to return. Is that going to be a big part of your medium to long-term future?
Yes and no. Well, I mean, the National Air Carrier Finnair has been focusing very much in the Chinese market, and that's why we've also been investing a lot in the Chinese market. But nobody knows when it's going to be open and when and how. But at the same time, I mean, of course, we're going to do things they're still in the future. But at the same time, we're going to look at the markets nearby. So meaning that the other Nordic countries, the Baltic countries, Russia is, St. Petersburg is 3.5 hours by train from Helsinki. It's very close by. But we've been lucky with the fact that we don't have only one big market. We have 6-7 markets that are equally big, including China and Russia and Germany and UK and so on. US as well.
So a big part of your digital platforms has been getting locals involved and having really rich, deep local content, local recommendations, etc. What's been the secret to getting that local engagement on your digital platforms?
I think it's that's a good question, and I think it's the secret is authenticity. That like I said, we're not doing marketing, but we're doing content that is really people believe in. So we have about 150 content providers. I mean, people who do content for us for the My Helsinki website, and they are often people who have a passion for something. I mean, people who might be passionate about saunas, public saunas, or people who are passionate about, I don't know, Asian restaurants or whatever it be, and they share their favorite places and their favorite stories. So really about they have the passion for something and passion for the city, and finding those people it has been for us the key to secret. And then also we of course now it's different. Now we focus very much on marketing on the locals as well, but in these old normal times, we used to say that our target markets are international, but we create the credibility from the locals. So the locals must think that the content is good, and the content that the locals use the site and use the content. Then we have the credibility to talk with them, talk to the foreign audiences.
Yeah, and that sets you up beautifully, doesn't it, for pivoting to more of a domestic focus in the recovery. So let's move on to sustainability. And you've been a real global leader, Helsinki, in terms of sustainability, your Think Sustainability program. So a couple of weeks ago, we held an Earth Day special webinar, and we talked about destinations that have had a commitment to stewardship, but how do you sort of come out of this crisis and both your own organization, your tourism industry, and more broadly the visitor experience is more sustainable? So as a city that's been a real innovator and leader in sustainability, how are you thinking about this space and what's going to happen out of this crisis in terms of your commitment to sustainability?
Well, I think sustainability will be even more important in the future, and I believe that the customer behavior will change quite radically in the future, in the post-corona times, and we, of course, we won't stop traveling. Nobody wants that, but the reasons why we travel will be different. So there needs to be a stronger why you travel somewhere, and it needs to be connected to your own values. and the destinations that understand the values of their target audiences are, I think, the winning ones. And so I believe that actually marketing is coming more purpose driven in the future. And the purpose for us is sustainability. So you can actually, we not only talk about it, but we make it come alive. And this again is based on the strategy that the city has. So we have, like it says here, we're committed to being carbon neutral by 2035 and reducing the emissions by 60% by 2030. And this is, we as a DMO are part of this city strategy. We're making it come alive with the activities we do. And the, this Think Sustainably service that you see here is a digital platform, a digital service that combines sustainability, sustainable choices in the city from inspiration and transportation. And this is part of My Helsinki Sign. So basically the idea is to make sustainable choices as easy as possible. And it works two ways. So we're encouraging the service providers to change their behavior into more sustainable. And then we are encouraging the visitors and the locals to choose more sustainably. And all this service is based on a criteria that we created with a local think tank, and is it's very easy. So it's kind of like the whole point was that it's as easy as it can be, so that it's really the small service providers can change their behavior and change their activities into more sustainable. Because very often the environmental certificates are quite, they're quite tricky and hard to kind of like, there's for a small company, it's quite hard to work with those ones. So and it's the sustainability, it's not either or, but it's both and. So you kind of like, all the small steps matter as well. And when there's enough people taking the small steps, it will have a huge impact. And this is what we are very strongly believing in.
So coming out of this crisis, what's your thoughts, Laura, about, businesses are obviously going to be in a very challenging place. They already are in a very challenging place. So in terms of keeping them committed to these principles of sustainability, investing in changes to their business, is that going to make this harder? And how do you think you're going to have to address that or communicate that in a different way?
Well, I believe that, again, that it's not something that is, because it was there before the crisis, and it's not going away, and having the whole community communicating the same thing, and starting from the from the National Tourism Board to the local government, to different DMOs in Finland. So it's not only Finland who is committed to sustainability, but it's a whole country. There again, the customer insight and the understanding of who really is your target group, but who are the ones who share the values that you have, becomes even more and more important. And this is because I strongly believe that we don't, we might travel less in the future, but there's a stronger reason why we travel. And then encouraging those who come to your destination to stay longer or come again. This is something that destinations have not been paying enough attention to. That how do you make people come back? You always wanted to get new customers, but actually, should we focus on getting people come back to our destinations?
Very good. And I'll just highlight a couple of resources related to our Earth Day webinar at the end. So what about thinking more broadly about Scandinavia, and are there any sort of standout examples amongst other Scandinavian destinations, Laura, that you could highlight in terms of what they're doing in response to the crisis?
Yeah, I think when looking at the Nordic countries from further away, they all look very similar. They have, and that's true as well. But and it's true and not. I mean, the societies are built in a very similar way, and they share the values, and the societies are very similar. But at the same time, I think the capitals are very different. Stockholm has long been the capital of Scandinavia, as they call themselves. Oslo is very much up and coming, and Helsinki, well, definitely, I believe that it's up and coming. It's between the East and West, and has this kind of like Eastern and Western influences at the same time. And Copenhagen is my favorite city in the world. And I think all of these destinations that I mentioned they are actually all very committed to sustainability. In terms of visitor numbers, Copenhagen is the leading city, but still the crisis is hitting us all. And I would encourage actually to keep an eye on all the capitals, because you might have an idea that, like I said, all the Nordics are the same. But if you follow the capitals, they're not that same at all. But there's a good innovation coming from all of those.
Yes, yeah, there's really quite special and unique differences. So just in terms of some of the results and impacts you've seen from your Think Sustainability initiative, what sort of, in terms of making this more real and meaningful, what are some of the things you'd highlight?
Yeah, well, here you can see some results and impact from so far. So this is still very early in the with the new service. We launched it last year in August, but they're quite remarkable results already. So 90% of the companies who took part of this project said that they have taken actions towards sustainability. So this service and this criteria has made it easy for them to act more sustainably. So here again, we're not only talking about communicating it, but we actually, I think the actions are actually the most impactful marketing that I can think of. And here again, we not only launched the new service, but we also communicated it globally quite strongly. So as we said, there's a lot of earned media. There's a big earning media value. There's more than 400 articles written about the service, and that was quite surprising for me. I mean, it's a part of our website, and we created 400 articles about it. So I think it talks about the fact that there's a really strong need for in terms of finding concrete actions and really something that is tangible and something how you can change your behavior and how you can make an impact on the destination. So not only, I think this is it's a whole new area of marketing and brand building nowadays, and I'm happy about it. I think this is the way it should be.
Yes, impactful. So I'd encourage everybody, there's some great resources that Helsinki shares on their website about both their digital innovation and sustainability initiatives, and we'll include some of those links in the follow-up. So just to wrap up, Laura, what would you highlight in terms of final pieces of advice for destinations who are listening in from around the world and across the US? What are your sort of practical lessons of grappling with this very challenging time?
Well, this is my favorite favorite thing. I come from outside the industry. I've worked now with the Helsinki marketing for 4 or 5 years. I worked a lot with the travel industry, but I'm not from within the industry. And I think one advice I would give to all DMOs is to hire outside your kind of like the people you know already. So you need, because the role of the DMO is changing. I mean, and with this crisis even more. So hire people from that you don't know, who think differently, who kind of like help you kind of like renew your activities and renew the way you think you should do marketing. And then the second thing is focus on people. Focus on customer insight, understand the values, understand what your target groups, what they desire and how they act and how what sort of life they live. And then the third thing is be bold. I think these times call for for radical innovation. And we cannot do the things in the similar way we used to. And like this virtual Helsinki concert was quite a crazy idea. I mean, it was actually a silly idea having this band playing on the Senate Square virtually, but it grew up to be a story, a real story that people found exciting when it had the whole kind of package of the city and its ambition level and its kind of like commitment to digital innovation. So that's my short advice.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. I know it's late there. Of course, the sun's still up. We were just talking about the incredibly long days you have at this time of the year. So we'll come back to a couple of final questions. I just want to remind people about Q&A, which we'll come to, and additional resources. We've flagged our COVID-19 Communication Centre, where we've got not just our webinars, but we've curated a list and recordings from a huge range of other webinars as well. In the theme of sustainability and the Earth Day webinar we held, there's also a 2-part blog which identifies 8 ways to build a more sustainable future. So check out those resources and the associated materials from both Colorado, Oregon, and Solomar International. And coming in the coming week, we're going to be doing a multi-part blog on top performing destination videos. We actually did, we had a look around the world at 200 destinations and identified top 10 COVID-19 specific videos. That's already up on our website, and we'll be following up with a broader look. Okay, and don't forget, of course, we've got upcoming webinars. So next week on Tuesday, March the 12th, we've got a great panel of industry veterans who's going to be sharing insights and lessons on the experience and takeaways from past crises, 9/11, the great financial crisis. So Chris Thompson, DT Minnick, and Ursula Bowles will reflect on insights and takeaways and what we can apply to the crisis today. On the March the 19th, Matt Clement from Arrivalist is going to be joining us to look at the recovery of drive travel. They've got a wonderful data tracking tool, which we've got up on our website, or of course it's available on theirs, tracking drive travel in every one of the 50 states. And we've actually got Jason Dawson from the Waikato in New Zealand, my home country, and he's going to be sharing some of the lessons of the recovery from New Zealand. Fortunately, they're a little bit further advanced. They've had very low, or in fact no cases in the last week or two, and hopefully they're on track to open up travel in a way that very few other countries are in a position to do so. So hopefully we'll get a sort of jump in a time machine and have a look down the track at what the situation might be in the US, albeit a little bit further out. Okay, so let's, and just finally, of course, the resources available up on the website. Okay, we've got a question. Bill, question for you, Amir. Are we seeing any sort of regional differences across the US in how US travelers are thinking about those first trips? Any insights on that?
Yeah, so Chris, actually, Bill, that's a great question. This is actually just a 1,000 sample national survey. While we do have some regional data, it's not strong enough for us to make any real regional assumptions or differentiation. Obviously, as different states, different parts of the country are starting to reopen at different paces and with different restrictions, you're gonna see sentiment varying based on what stage of lockdown or reentry those destinations are, and the consumer attitudes are going to change as they see the next stage or the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, for each stage coming up.
Very good. So we've got a number of questions, Laura, about the concert that you ran in Helsinki. So James is asking just to repeat the attendance numbers that were quite unbelievable.
There was 700,000 people attending it, and then the whole number that was live, and then with the streaming, and then afterwards it was up to 1.5 million people who saw the concert, and that's like nearly more than twice the size of the number of the locals in the city, and it's a remarkable number in the country with a 5.5 million inhabitants.
Very good. And Sarah's asking, what was the duration of the concert, and can we watch this recording?
Unfortunately, not anymore, because we had it until Sunday. But there are some kind of like shortcuts. I can send you, Chris, links to those ones, so you can add them in the material. But because of the legal issues, we didn't have it longer than until Sunday. But the story lives further. So I think it was really important also to kind of like understand it in many levels, that even though it was for the locals, but it was also an appealing international story that needed to be told.
Was it just in Finnish or in English as well?
It was actually only in Finnish. Just today came an article on Guardian about the concert, and that British journalist was actually attending the concert, even though it was in Finnish. I mean, it's a rap band. They have the lyrics in Finnish.
Sure. So we'll be sure to follow up with some of those links, hopefully. Now, Chris is asking for this concert. When did you make the decision to go virtual, and what was the timeline from sort of concept to final delivery in terms of pulling it all together?
Well, we started the whole virtual Helsinki platform more than 2 years ago, and we've been promoting this idea of virtual tourism for about 2 years. I've been talking in many occasions about this activity, and 2 years ago it was quite weird. People said, "Oh, I mean, why do you talk about virtual tourism? Well, don't you actually want people to come to your destination?" And here again, it's not either or, but it's both and. So it can be a marketing tool, but it's also, I strongly believe that in the future, we don't want everybody to come to Helsinki. We need different kinds of ways to experience the destination, and this virtual reality is one of those. And then in the future, what you can do with that platform in terms of business-to-business events, in terms of traveling in time, historical experiences, and also adding the purchase possibilities at some point. I mean, if you can, because the technology is already there. You can. It's not only free of charge events, but it's also something that you can actually charge of.
So Vicky is asking.
Sorry,
Vicky's asking.
I forgot to answer the question about how long time we had for this concert. So the virtual Helsinki is 2 years, and this basically the concert was it was a 4 weeks project. It was really fast.
Quite the turnaround, and your tight integration with the city and local government, I think, is another sort of standout feature that's going to be important for a lot of destinations moving forward. So Vicky's just asking the question about, do you compensate the 150 locals that provide content onto your platforms?
Yes, we pay them. Not huge sums of money. It's not kind of like influencer marketing in that terms, and they're not actually influencers in the term that they would be celebrities in that. I mean, some of them are, but mostly it's that they have the passion for something, and we pay them a little amount of some money for creating content, but that we would anyways pay to whoever would create the content. But it's we also of course do influencer marketing as well, but this is a completely different kind of a story.
So Steve is asking Amir, are we continuing the research on a weekly basis, and what's our sort of plans over the next couple of months?
Absolutely, we're going to continue this on a weekly basis as long as it's necessary, obviously. We go into the field every Wednesday, so tomorrow morning we're already queuing up the next survey, and every Wednesday and Thursday we hope to release the data every Tuesday mornings.
Yes, and a reminder, we do the 2-page summary, the 5-minute quick overview webinar that you can also participate in. And Amir, we'll get you back in a month or so to again have a look back on the tracking. Final question for you, Laura, from Barbara. Can you give us a glimpse on any other future projects that you've got on the drawing board?
Oh, well, we certainly will continue with the virtual Helsinki project. I mean, you can actually look into it if you go online, virtualhelsinki.fi. And we're gonna next we're gonna launch something with a local art museum in the coming weeks as well. And we're very much looking into the business B2B sector now as well. So there's what this crisis is doing for the business travel is still to be unknown, and we need new. I mean, we don't need the streamed events, but I mean, there's lots of those, but we all really need new kinds of technology entering the business to business travel side, and how do you combine the actual meeting and the virtual meeting, and what kind of hybrids you can build around that. So I think this is it's still an untouched ground. There's a lot to do on that field.
Well, thank you so much to Laura for staying up and sharing your insights and your wisdom from Helsinki, a very special part of the world. And I'd encourage anybody who's got the opportunity to come and visit to certainly go to Helsinki and Finland on your travels. My daughters and wife would insist I highlight that some of the countries that are dealing with this the best, most of them are managed by women, and that's Taiwan, Korea, New Zealand, Finland, obviously, etc. So an interesting story there. So thanks again, Laura, for joining us, and thanks, Amir, so much for your input into this very important survey and research. And thanks everybody for joining us today. Stay safe, stay well. Please visit our portal, join us on future webinars, and we look forward to connecting again soon. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.